You made it in court. Mind you, she's done porn. She's in the process of still doing porn, meaning she did it.
Well, first off, I want to say that y'all got to understand that fame is a hell of a gun.
OMG. Hey, everybody over here in Whitney D TV 2.0 land. Oh my gosh. Hello. And if you guys are tuning in on Facebook, what up? What up? Okay. First and foremost, it's been a long time since I've been over here on this side in this neck of the woods, because I mean, it's just popping over on my original channel. So if you are not subscribed, please head on over to Whitney D TV and go subscribe. Okay. But in the meantime, in between time, I came across this article, which led me to this other article, if you will, or this other post, if you will. And I would like to get into it because it was very interesting, to say the least. Not too often do we hear about stuff like this. And that's the reason why I said I want to talk about it. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right. Let me share my screen, and I ask that you guys, while I'm sharing my screen, you guys share this video, okay? Please, 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 and thank you. Go ahead and put that fair use up, all right? And y'all let me know what you guys think about this particular article that we're about to get into, okay? Okay, hold on, let me see something real quick. And it's kind of lengthy. So, you know, if you want to watch the playback, you can. But let me go ahead and get it into it. Very, very interesting. Nobody's talking about this, though. I understand, though. Boom. Okay. So I thought I was saving trans kids. Now I'm blowing the whistle. Okay. And this is the reason why I wanted to get into this article, because nobody's talking about this. All we see is the glorification of transitioning, but we don't hear about, you know, the other side about it. And just as well as anything that you do in life, anything that you shift into, if you will, it's a good and a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? Just like religion, it's a good, it's a bad thing. Just like parenting, good or bad thing. You get my drift? So this is no different. It's good and it's bad to any and everything that you get into. But we really don't see the off-putting side about transitioning. And we darn sure don't hear about it with kids, when this has been the biggest push in today's society, getting these kids operated on before they even hit puberty, because it makes them look more realistic, look more natural, and etc. Okay, and see, this is the reason why I'm on this channel, baby, because I can't do this on my other channel, baby. It will get taken down, you know. But I'm gonna try to see anyway, baby. I'm gonna put probably like a little podcast of it on my channel. But anyways, y'all, let's go ahead and get into this article. All right. Now, this is a LGBTQIA plus supporter. Not trying to be shady when I say this, as you clearly can see. Okay. She supports the community and she's blowing the whistle, and I can appreciate that. Oftentimes, like I said, we have people in this community to act as if it's just the beautiful, most greatest, glamorous thing, and it's not. So let's go ahead and get into this read that's brought to you by the press. I mean, the Free Press for free people. Okay. This is Jamie Reed. Okay. I thought I was saving trans kids. Now I'm blowing the whistle. Okay. Goes on to read. And this is her. Okay. She did this, a week ago? I actually spoke on it just a little bit on my main channel, but I told everyone that I'm going to be reading the article in its entirety. So here I go, and I'm doing so. Okay. I am a 42-year-old St. Louis native, a queer woman, and politically to the left of Bernie Sanders. My worldview has deeply shaped my career. I have spent my professional life providing counseling to vulnerable populations, children in foster care, sexual minorities, the poor. For almost 4 years, I worked at the Washington University School of Medicine Division of Infectious Diseases with teens and young adults who were HIV positive. Hold on, let me blow this up. Yes. Okay. So sorry, y'all. Okay. The girl is blind. Okay. Anyways, many of them were trans or otherwise gender non-conforming, and I could relate. Through childhood and adolescence, I did a lot of gender questioning myself. I'm now married to a trans man. Okay. So it's a woman that has transitioned to a man, if I'm not mistaken. And what I don't get, no shade, but we're going to talk about it. What I don't get is that you guys still over on that side, still conform to heterosexual normalities. If you think about it, you are a trans man. And so you're married to another trans man, another woman that is a man. So I don't know, Chad. I'm just confused. Lord and God is not our confusion, but I digress. And together we are raising my 2 biological children from a previous marriage and 3 foster children we hope to adopt. All that led me to a job in 2018. Now, my point in saying that, let me run that back because I didn't finish my point, my thought. So if you see in most cases, you see trans relationships. You have the trans person who probably was a female that transitioned to a man, but she is now with a female who used to be you know what I'm saying? So you're still portraying the heterosexual normality at the end of the day. Anyways, child, just like what Gabrielle, what I can't remember the basketball because see, it's just Gabrielle's husband. But Gabrielle Union's stepson or whatever, Zion, that the trans, but the little boyfriend that she quote has is really a girl, and he's a boy, so he's really not doing nothing wrong. You hear what I'm saying? All right. Anyway, yeah. All that led me to a job in 2018 as a case manager at the Washington University Transgender Center at St. Louis Children's Hospital, which had been established a year earlier. Now, the center's working assumption was that the earlier you treat kids with gender dysphoria, the more anguish you can prevent later on. Now, this premises was shared by the center's doctors and therapists. Given their expertise, I assumed that abundant evidence backed this consensus. So she assumed. So clearly her assumption, I guess, wasn't validated because she's saying that she assumed. So I'm guessing it's really no validity to that assumption, but I concur. During the 4 years I worked at the clinic as a case manager, I was responsible for patient intake and oversight. Around 1,000 distressed young people came through our doors. The majority of them received hormone prescriptions that can have life altering consequences, including sterility. Mm, to make them sterile. Wow. I left the clinic in November of last year because I could no longer participate in what was happening there. By the time I departed, I was certain that the way the American medical system is treating these patients is the opposite of the promise we make to quote, do no harm, end quote. Instead, we are permanently harming the vulnerable patients in our care. Today, I am speaking out. I am doing so knowing how toxic the public conversation is around this highly contentious issue and the ways that my testimony might be misused. I am doing so knowing that I am putting myself at serious personal and professional risk. Almost everyone in my life advised me to keep my head down, but I cannot, in good conscience, do so. Because what is happening to scores of children is far more important than my comfort. And what is happening to them is morally and medically appalling. And again, this is the woman who is speaking out on all of this. Kudos to you, sister. The floodgates open. Soon after my arrival at the Transgender Center, I was struck by the lack of formal protocols for treatment. The center's physician co-directors were essentially the sole authority. At first, the patient population was tipped toward what used to be the quote traditional instance of a child with gender dysphoria, a boy, often quite young, wanted to present as who wanted to be a girl. Until 2015 or so, a very small number of these boys comprised the population of pediatric gender dysphoria cases. Then, across the Western world, there began to be a dramatic increase in a new population, teenage girls, many with no previous history of gender distress, suddenly declared they were transgender and demanded immediate treatment with testosterone. I certainly saw this at the center. One of my jobs was to do intake for new patients and their families when I started there, were properly 10 such calls a month. When I left, there were 50, and about 70% of the new patients were girls. Sometimes clusters of girls arrived from the same high school. This concerned me, but didn't feel I was in the position to sound some kind of alarm back then. There was a team of about 8 of us, and only one other person brought up the kinds of questions I had. Anyone who raised doubts ran the risk of being called a transphobe. Oh my God. Are y'all hearing this? So even if you are in the midst of that community, you can be perceived as being transphobe because you do not agree. Mm, mm, mm. Literally do it to your own people. Wow, 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 wow. The girls who came to us had many, sorry, comor- comor- comorbidities. Um, sorry, belching, you guys. Depression, anxiety, ADHD, disorders, obesity. Many were diagnosed with autism or had autism-like symptoms. Wow. A report last year on a British pediatric transgender center found that about one third of the patients referred there were on the autism spectrum. Wow. Frequently, our patients declared they had disorders that no one believed they had. We had patients who said they had tor- Tourette syndrome, but they didn't. That they had tic disorders, but they didn't. That they had multiple personalities, but they didn't. The doctors privately recognized these false self-diagnosis as a manifestation of social contagion. They even acknowledged that UAI has an element of social contagion. I believe that too. But when I said the clusters of girls streaming into our service looked as if their gender issues might be a manifestation of social contagion, the doctor said gender identity reflected something in it, innate. To begin transitioning, the girls needed a letter of support from a therapist, usually one we recommended. Aha! Very interesting. All right. Very interesting. Only someone that they recommend. Wow, wow, wow. Very, very interesting, very alarming to say the least, because I would think one would want to outsource it. You know what I'm saying? Why you got to be within the facility? Wouldn't there be a little bias, if you will? But I concur. Mm, 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 mm. Anywho, who they had to see only once or twice for the green light. See, if it was up to me, this is what you want, this is what you say you want, you know, I would have to see you at least half a year to a year. Okay. To make it more efficient for the therapist, we offered them a template for how to write a letter in support of transition. The next stop was a single visit to the endocrinologist for a testosterone prescription. Wow, that's all it took. Mm. When a female takes testosterone, the profound and permanent effects of the hormone can be seen in a matter of months. Voices drop, beards sprout, body fat is redistributed, sexual interest explodes, aggression increases, and mood can be unpredictable. Our patients were told about some side effects, including sterility. But after working at the center, I came to believe that teenagers are simply not capable of fully grasping what it means to make the decision to become infertile while still a minor. My God, today. Are y'all hearing this? I don't think so, because not many of you guys are paying attention to this video right now. This is a lesbian, okay? Again, that's in this community, that's a representative of this community, all right? Who is stating out her own words. She came to believe that teenagers, okay, let's highlight that, are simply not capable of fully grasping what it means to make the decision to become infertile while still a freaking minor. You are a kid. You do not know better. You don't know any better. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Side effects. Many encounters with patients emphasized to me how little these young people understood the profound impacts changing gender would have on their bodies and minds. But the center downplayed the negative consequences and emphasized the need for transition. As the center's website said, quote, left untreated, gender dysphoria has any number of consequences from self-harm to I. But when you take away the gender dysphoria by allowing a child to be who he or she is, we're noticing that goes away. Studies we have showed these kids often wind up functioning psychologically as well as or better than their peers. End quote. There are no reliable studies showing this. Indeed, the experiences of many of the center's patients prove how false these assertions are. Oh my goodness. I am absolutely putting this on my channel. Hopefully it doesn't get me strike. Hopefully it doesn't get taken down. But oh my God, today. This is profound. This is disturbing, but this is profound. Wow. Here's an example. On Friday, May 1st, 2020, a colleague emailed me about a 15-year-old male patient. Quote, oh dear, I'm concerned that the patient does not understand what the cyclotamide does. End quote. I responded, quote, I don't think that we start anything honestly right now. End quote. So let's look at this particular document. Okay. As you guys see here. All right. So this is back 3 years ago. Okay. Just say block. It's not. Just say blocker. It will cause breast development. The family seemed certain that was their first choice of therapy to start with. The statement made in the letter that, quote, at times it seems scary, so she wants to move slowly, but eventually sees herself as being on estrogen. End quote. Is in the rote name at the end. What do we do now? Jamie responds, I don't think that we start anything, honestly, right now. I think that this is a letter saying, wait, more time. And yes, I think that blank does not understand what the medicine does. Wow, 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 wow. Oh, oh goodness. Hold on, y'all. I knocked myself out. Woo-hoo. Oh, hold on, y'all. Mm, 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 mm. Hold on. Okay. Let me share it again. My apologies, y'all. I kicked myself out once I was reading that article. If you guys are tuning in, this is very alarming. Okay. Let me scroll down. We just got through reading this particular email. Okay. Now it says biocacumine, whatever. I think that I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Y'all forgive me, but biocacumine, I want to say. Yeah. All right. Um, it's a medication used to treat metastatic prostate cancer. And one of its side effects is that it feminizes the bodies of men who take it, including the appearance of breasts. The center prescribed this cancer drug as a puberty blocker and feminizing agent for boys. A freaking cancer prescription, y'all. Are y'all hearing this? A freaking cancer prescription is prescribed to these transgender quote quote boys that want to be girls. A freaking cancer. As with most cancer drugs, Biocateclate, I don't know what that is. This medicine has a long list of side effects, and this patient experienced one of them: liver toxicity. He was sent to another unit of the hospital for evaluation and immediately taken off the drug. Afterward, his mother sent an electronic message to the transgender center saying that we were lucky her family was not the type to sue. Yikes. How little patients understood what they were getting into was illustrated by a call we received at the center in 2020 from a 17-year-old biological female patient who was on testosterone. She said she was bleeding from the vagina. In less than an hour, she had soaked through an extra heavy pad, her jeans, and a towel she had wrapped around her waist. The nurse at the center told her to go to the emergency room right away. We found out later this girl had had intercourse, and because testosterone thins the vaginal tissues, her vaginal canal had ripped. Oh my God. My God, today. See, they're not talking about this. She had to be sedated and given surgery to repair the damage. She wasn't the only vaginal laceration, sorry y'all, case we heard about. Other girls were disturbed by the effects of testosterone on their clitoris, which enlarges and grows into what looks like a micro phallus or a tiny penis. This is not funny, this is sad. I counseled one patient whose enlarged clitoris now extended below her vulva, and it chafed and rubbed painfully in her jeans. I advised her to get the kind of compressed undergarments worn by biological men who dress to pass as female. At the end of the call, I thought to myself, quote, wow, we hurt this kid, end quote. There are rare conditions in which babies are born with a typical genitalia. Cases that call for sophisticated care and compassion, but clinics like the one where I worked are creating a whole cohort of kids with a topical genitalia. And most of these teens haven't even had sex yet. They had no idea who they were going to be as adults, yet all it took for them to permanently transform themselves was one or two short conversations with a therapist. Now, being put on powerful doses of testosterone or estrogen, even to try to trick your body into mimicking the opposite sex, affects the rest of the body. Now, I doubt that any parent who's ever consented to give their kid testosterone or lifelong treatment knows that they are also possibly signing their kid up for blood pressure medication. Oh my God. Cholesterol medication, and perhaps sleep apnea and diabetes. But sometimes the parents' understanding of what they had agreed to due to their children came forcefully, as we see here. Hello. Please be advised that I'm revoking my consent for this course of medical treatment. Grades have dropped. There's been an inpatient behavioral health visit, and now he's on 5 different medications. Mm. Blake is a shell of his former self, fiddled with anxiety. Who knows if it's because the hormones, blockers, or the other medications? I revoke my consent. I want the hormone blocker removed. Thank you. Neglected and mentally ill patients. Now, besides teenage girls, another new group was referred to us young people from the inpatient psychiatric unit or the emergency department of St. Louis Children's Hospital. The medical health of these kinds was deeply concerning. There were diagnoses like schizophrenia, PTSD, bipolar disorder, and more. Often they were already on a fistful of pharmaceuticals. This was tragic but unsurprising, given the profound trauma some had been through. Yet, no matter how much suffering or pain a child had endured, or how little treatment and love they had received, our doctors viewed gender transition, even with all the expense and hardship it entailed, as the solution. They were just money hungry, man. This is so sad. Some weeks it felt as though almost our entire caseload was nothing but disturbed young people. For example, one teenager came to us in the summer of 2022 when he was 17 years old and living in a lockdown facility because he had been sexually abusing dogs. Oh my God, today. Okay. Uh, he had an awful childhood. His mother was a drug A. His father was in prison, and he grew up in foster care. Whatever treatment he may have been getting, it wasn't working. During our intake, I learned from another caseworker that when he got out, he planned to reoffend because he believed the dogs had willingly submitted. Okay. Somewhere along the way, he expressed a desire to become female. So he ended up being seen at our center. And from there, he went to a psychologist at the hospital who was known to approve virtually everyone seeking transition. Then our doctor recommended feminizing hormones at the time. I wondered if this was being done as a form of uh, chemical castration. Now, that same thought came up again in another case. This one was in spring of 2020 and concerned a young man who had intense obsessive compulsive disorder that manifested as a desire to cut off his finger time after he masturbated. This patient expressed no gender dysphoria, but he got hormones too. I asked the doctor what protocol he was following, but I never got a straight answer. In local parenting, another disturbing aspect of the center was its lack of regard for the rights of parents and the extent to which doctors saw themselves as more informed decision makers over the fate of these children. In Missouri, only one parent's consent is required for treatment of their child. But when there was a dispute between the parents, it seemed the center always took the side of the affirming parent. My concerns about this approach to dissenting parents grew in 2019 when one of our doctors actually testified in a custody hearing against a father who opposed a mother's wish to start their 11 year old daughter on puberty blockers. Mm, mm, mm. I thought I had done the original intake call and I found the mother quite disturbing. She and the father were getting divorced, and the mother described the daughter as, quote, kind of a tomboy, end quote. So now the mother was convinced her child was trans. But when I asked if her daughter had adopted a boy's name, if she was distressed about her body, if she was saying she felt like a boy, the mother said no. I explained the girl just didn't meet the criteria of an evaluation. Then a month later, the mother called back and said her daughter now used a boy's name, was in distress over her body, and wanted to transition. This time, the mom and daughter were given an appointment. Our providers decided the girl was trans and prescribed a puberty blocker to prevent her normal development. Now, the father adamantly disagreed, said this was all coming from the mother, and a custody battle ensued. After the hearing, where our doctor testified in favor of transition, the judge sided with the mother. Thanks. I was not having any issue with interpreting or understanding the elements that she commented on below. I was looking at the bigger question about how consent is now being determined. My concerns are that the judge is essentially removing the element of parental consent and placing it in our hands. The judge could have awarded the medical decision making to the dad or awarded the legal custody to the dad. Instead, the judge put in the censor's hands the decision making for medical transition. And this is a patient who is not yet 16. I want my breast back. Now, because I was the main intake person, I had the broadest perspective on our existing and prospective patients. In 2019, a new group of people appeared on my radar. The sisters and the sisters and the transitioners. The sisters choose not to go through with a transition. The transitioners are transgender people who decided to return to their birth gender. The one colleague with whom I was able to share my concerns agreed with me that we should be tracking uh, these assistances and the transition. We thought the doctors would want to collect and understand this data in order to figure out what they had missed. We were wrong. One doctor wondered aloud why we would spend time on someone who was no longer his patient. But we created a document anyway and called it the red flag list. It was an Excel spreadsheet that tracked the kind of patients that kept my colleague and me up at night. One of the saddest cases of detransitioning I witnessed was a teenage girl who, like so many of our patients, came from an unstable family, was in an uncertain living situation, and had a history of drug use. The overwhelming majority of our patients are white, but this girl was black. She was put on hormones at the center when she was around 16. When she was 18, she went in for a double mastectomy, what's known as, quote, top surgery, end quote. 3 months later, she called the surgeon's office to say she was going back to her birth name and that her pronouns were she and her. Heartbreakingly, she told the nurse, I want my breast back. end quote. The surgeon's office contacted our office because they didn't know what to say to this girl. My colleague and I said that we would reach out. It took a while to track her down, and when we did, we made sure that she was in decent mental health, that she was not actively or idle, that she was not using substances. The last I heard, she was pregnant. Of course, she'll never be able to breastfeed her child. Get on board or get out. My concerns about what was going on at the center started to overtake my life. By spring of 2020, I felt a medical and moral obligation to do something. So I spoke up in the office and sent plenty of emails. Here's just one example. On January 6, 2022, I received an email from a staff therapist asking me for help with a case of a 16-year-old transgender male living in another state. Quote, parents are open to having patients see a therapist, but are not supportive of gender, and patient does not want parents to be aware of gender identity. I'm having a challenging time finding a gender affirming therapist. End quote. I replied, quote, I do not ethically agree with linking a minor patient to a therapist who would be gender affirming with gender as a focus of their work without that being discussed with the parents and the parent agreeing to that kind of care. Within the center, we do not link minor patients to gender affirming care without the consent of at least one parent or legal guardian. With that said, we have a list of therapists for blank attached. Now, in all my years at the Washington University School of Medicine, I have received solidly positive performance reviews. But in 2021, that changed. I got a below average mark for my quote judgment and quote working relationships, cooperative spirit, end quote. Although I was described as quote responsible, uh, conscious, I think it's conscious or concise. My bad, y'all. Um, Hardworking and productive. The evaluation, as noted, quote, at times Jamie responds poorly to direction from management with defensiveness and hostility. Oh, now she's hostile. Okay, interesting. These came to a head at a halfway retreat in summer of 2022. In front of the team, the doctor said that my colleague and I had to stop questioning the quote medicine and the science end quote, as well as their authority. An administrator told us we had to quote get on board or get out end quote. It became clear that the purpose of the retreat was to deliver these messages to us. The Washington University system provides a generous college tuition payment program for long-standing employees. I live by my paycheck and have no money to put aside for 5 college tuitions for my kids. I had to keep my job. I also feel a lot of loyalty to Washington University, but I decided then and there that I had to get out of the transgender center. And to do so, I had to keep my head down and improve my next performance review. I managed to get a decent evaluation. I landed a job conducting research in another part of the Washington University School of Medicine. I gave my notice and left the transgender center in November of 2022. What I want to see happen. For a couple of weeks, I tried to put everything behind me and settle into my new job as a clinical research coordinator, managing studies regarding children undergoing bone marrow transplants. Then I came across comments from Dr. Rachel Levine, a transgender woman who is a high official at the Federal Department of Health and Human Resources. The article read, quote, Levine, U.S. Assistant Secretary for Health, said that clinics are proceeding carefully and that no American children are receiving drugs or hormones for gender dysphoria who shouldn't, end quote. I left stunned and sickened. It wasn't true. And I know that from deep first-handed experience. So I started writing down everything I could about my experience at the Transgender Center. 2 weeks ago, I brought my concerns and documents to the attention of Missouri's Attorney General. He is a Republican. I am a progressive. But the safety of children should not be a matter for our culture wars. I'm going to look into that later. Given the security, the secrecy and lack of rigorous standards that characterize characterize youth gender transition across the country, I believe that to ensure the safety of American children, we need a moratorium on the hormonal and surgical treatment of young people with gender dysphoria. In the past 15 years, according to Reuters, the U.S. has gone from having no pediatric gender clinics to more than 100. Through analysis, although I want to say this one, although analysis should be undertaken, a thorough analysis should be undertaken to find out what has been done to their patients and why, and what the long-term consequences are. There is a clear path for us to follow. Just last year, England announced that it would close the Tavish Scott's Young Gender Clinic, then the NHS's. Only such clinics in the country after an investigation revealed, I'm going to click on that, revealed shoddy practices and poor patient treatment. Sweden and Finland, too, have investigated pediatric transition and greatly curbed the practice, finding there is insufficient evidence of help and danger of great harm. Some critics describe the kind of treatment offered at places like the Transgender Center, where I work, as a kind of national experiment. Wow, but that's wrong. Experiments are supposed to be carefully designed, hypotheses are supposed to be tested ethically. The doctors I worked alongside at the Transgender Center said frequently about the treatment of our patients, quote, we are building the plane while we are flying it, end quote. Wow. No one should be a passenger on that kind of aircraft. Wow, 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 wow. That's sad. Well, that is the article, you guys, and you guys can, wow, see it in its entirety. I'm going to link it down below. I'm sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained because I'm over here looking at this article in which she submitted her letter to the Attorney General in Missouri. So I'm kind of a little distracted. But yeah, that is the article, you guys. Shout out to Jamie, like I said, for blowing the whistle. And I stand on the simple fact of the matter that, let kids be kids. You know what I'm saying? Let them be kids. What you do when you become an adult, that's what you do when you become an adult. And be honest with you, you know what I'm saying? You're still going to be held accountable for the decisions that you make. But nonetheless, you guys, I just wanted to bring this to y'all perspective. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below in regards to this article. I thought I was saving trans kids. Now I'm blowing the whistle. Again, shouts out to Jamie Reed for coming and just exposing all of this. And it's just sad to hear what they go through, in regards to trying to quote unquote become who they believe that they are, child. Anyways, you guys, that's the video. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. And I will see you guys later. You made it in court. Mind you, she's done porn. She's in the process of still doing porn. Meaning she did it.
Well, first off, I want to say that y'all got to understand that fame is a hell of a drug.